Hello, my name is Jay Hartlove. Today I'm going to be reading from one of my horror novels as part of the Flint Horror Collective's April Ghouls Day. I would like to thank Chris Ringler for inviting me to join the festivities. So let's get right to it. I'm going to be reading from the first novel of a urban fantasy trilogy of mine. The first book is called Goddess Chosen, and the second book is called Goddess Daughter. And the third book is Goddess Rising. And all three of these are available in all formats and in all channels, so look me up. The first novel, without going into too much detail, is set in 2001. You will recall 2001, everybody was very worried about the millennium. And this is the story of a fellow who has come across some demons. He goes to a psychiatrist, who is the detective throughout all three books, and tells these wild stories, and she, of course, thinks he's delusional, when in fact he turns out to be right. And this particular demon that he's dealing with is actually the henchman for a master magician, a reincarnated ancient Egyptian magician named Salus Alvarado. And this bit that I'm going to pick up now is Salus trying to get some information off of some tomb walls in Egypt to try to complete his formula. Seated at his hotel room desk, Salus looked up from the maps of East Africa and glanced at his watch when he heard the wailing evening prayers echoing from a nearby mosque. He hoped Samir Dafala wasn't devout and hadn't stopped to bow to Mecca. Time was running short. Almost as if on cue, someone knocked on the door. "Yes, who is it?" he called out in English. Mr. Avadado," came a very youthful, very unsure voice. He opened the door, and the bright-faced young porter struggled to explain himself in extremely broken English. "Man wanted bring—" Yes, is that for me?" Salus demanded in perfect Egyptian. "Yes," he said, obviously relieved. He handed the large envelope to Salus and continued, "The man wanted to bring it to you himself, but you said you told him not to come here, and he gave me this to bring to you." Salus did not know if the youth's prattling was an attempt to fatten the tip or just exuberance, and he did not care. He snatched the package from the boy, shoved a 5-pound note in his hand, and slammed the door in his face. He cleared away the maps and immediately went to work setting up an array of items he had spent most of the day gathering. A smooth, hand-blown lead crystal bowl, a matching pitcher, a small bag of plaster, a tin of denatured alcohol, a bottle of purified water, and an artist's precision knife. He slipped the stack of enlarged photographs from the envelope and read Dafala's note. "Thank you for what must be the most demanding yet fascinating job I've ever done. I didn't think my equipment was accurate enough to enlarge or reduce all the views to exactly the same scale. But I think you'll be pleased with the results. All in all, I think hiring the airplane for the top shot on such short notice was the most difficult. Thank you again. I enjoyed the challenge, not to mention the chance to earn such a generous fee. If you ever have any other jobs in Cairo, please remember me." Silas looked at the 5 photographs and smiled. They were perfect. One of them even had Alquebec looking out his window. Silas took up the knife and started cutting. When he had trimmed the images down to the edges of the building, he lightly taped the pictures together, edge to edge, to form a box. He then took his model and the plaster into the bathroom and sealed the edges on the inside. Once the plaster was hard, he gingerly pulled the tape off of the image faces. All the while he worked, he quietly recited litanies to himself, charging his simulacrum with the essence of the original building. A few minutes later, his preparations were done. The model sat on the platter. The pure water was in the bowl. The lights were out, and each of the 2 glass vessels were surrounded on the desktop by 4 lit black candles. Salus began a very different kind of work. He withdrew a small vial from his black bag and dripped 4 drops of pungently floral-smelling yellow liquid into the water. He then withdrew his magical dagger and pricked the end of his left thumb and dripped 4 drops of his own blood into the bowl. Sitting down to face the bowl, he dipped his left index finger, stirred it, and then ran his finger around the lip until it sang. He closed his eyes and let the clear, ringing sound permeate his mind, let his mind become tuned to the vibration. He continued the dipping and stroking for several minutes before he opened his eyes. He tore open the small envelope of dirt that he had collected from in front of Hamil's building late the night before upon his return to Cairo. He poured the soil into the platter around the photographic model, and the candles flared. The magician resumed sounding the bowl, but this time he concentrated deeply on the surface of the water. The microscopic ripples threw reflections into his eyes, reflections that congealed to become images. As the images clarified, the harmonics of the bowl's tone wavered and became voices. Hamil was in his office, walking quickly to his door, looking at his watch, a confused look on his face. He stepped back apprehensively as 2 very tall men, one sickly thin, one built like an ox, moved commandingly into the room. "Rakashi," Alkabek nearly gasped, "what are you doing here?" "I've considered the offer you made me this morning. I am here to renegotiate." And the little man hesitated and looked furtively at the huge man. Is he part of the New Deal? At first, Salus was apprehensive about killing these other men, but now it was obvious that they were ultimately responsible for Hamil's deceit. He decided to watch further. As the art dealer retreated behind his desk, the phone rang. He grabbed up the receiver like an escape hatch. "Hello, yes? Oh, hi." "What?" His face blanched and his eyes shot wide. "No, it can't be. How? Oh, God, no!" He slumped into his chair and grabbed his forehead with his free hand. "Oh, God, what have I done?" He asked no one in particular. Yes. He returned to the person on the phone. "No, I don't know what to do next," he barked, his voice cracking. "Yes, all right, goodbye." "What was that all about?" Rakashi asked dispassionately. Hamil pulled out a handkerchief and mopped his glistening brow. "Nothing. Family business," he dismissed. Muttering at his desktop, looking up at his would-be assailants, he asked, in an honestly pathetic voice, "Could we discuss this later? I really have to be alone for a while." "Absolutely not," he stated flatly. "How do I know that call wasn't planned to get me out of here?" The little man frowned indignantly. "Because I had no idea you were coming by." "Not good enough. You either tell me what that call was, or we get back to business." "All right," he said, screwing in his courage. "All right, I'll tell you. That money I gave you today, it belonged to a man I cheated yesterday. I sent my brother-in-law to stop him from uncovering my fraud, but apparently he got away and tried to kill my customer. Apparently he got carried away and tried to kill my customer. Well, guess what? My wife's brother is now dead, and this man is free. You're talking to a dead man." He spat passionately. "Just how dangerous is this man? I could kill him for you, for a price," the drug dealer offered with characteristic coolness. "Ha!" Hamil blurted out nervously. "Akbar buried him under a mountainside, and he still got out. He told me that if I crossed him, he would hit me like the wrath of God. Go ahead, stay here," he insisted broadly. "I'd love for you to meet him." "What is that ringing sound?" The giant muscled man spoke up. "What? I don't hear anything." Rakashi dismissed him. "No, wait," the big man insisted. "It sounds like an air raid." "I hear it too," Hamil agreed. "Only it's too high-pitched for an air raid." He turned to the open window and listened. "It's getting louder." "I hear it also," the thin man commented. He started to wave his hand as if to get back to business, but he halted when the sound grew much louder. "It's coming from all around the building," he observed, worry creeping into his usually overcomposed voice. Salus continued circling the bowl with his left hand while he popped open the alcohol tin with his right and poured it into the platter. The sound was now so loud the men had to yell to hear one another. "Let's get out of here," Rakashi demanded, and headed for the door. Salus lit a match and dropped it onto the platter. The thin man howled as his palms seared and stuck to the suddenly red-hot doorknob. He ripped it free of the smoking flesh and shot Hamil a look of terror that made the little man squeal with joy. "It's him! It's Salus!" he screamed with glee. An instant later, though, his expression matched his enemy's. The entire outside of the building exploded spontaneously into flames. "Don't just stand there," Ragashi yelled at his man. "Kill him and kick open that door." But before anyone could move, their zippers, watches, rings, all flashed white-hot and ignited clothing or melted into flesh. The bullets in the gun the thug pulled out exploded inside the weapon, sending shrapnel into his face and chest. The metal buttons on Ragashi's linen suit sent a burst of flames up his front, setting his hair on fire. Apparently so thrilled to see his tormentor in such agony, Hamil acted as if his own pain were insignificant. "Go ahead, Alvarado," he screamed out. "Kill me! I welcome Allah's judgment." In an instant, the floor, walls, and ceiling were all consumed in flames. Hamil just laughed maniacally as he watched Ragashi roll about, futilely trying to put himself out. Soon Salus could hear the laughter no more, and all I could see was the reflection of the burning, crumpled mass in the plate next to him. He stopped stroking the bowl and drowned the fire with the water. That night he slept soundly. This magician is nobody to be trifled with. He has a plan, in fact, to capture the devil. And his objective is to wrest from the devil the secrets, the keys of creation, in order to make a better world. So I'm giving the reader a conundrum of having an extremely ruthless bad guy who's actually trying to do some really good work. The tagline from the book is, "The man who would beat the devil isn't a hero, but a ruthless madman." The second book is a medical thriller. It takes a little bit of a breather. Same detective, though. Samantha Mayawad, my psychiatrist, is in fact still the detective through all of these books. The second one is a medical thriller, which turns out to be the origin story for the true hero of the trilogy, Desiree Macklin, her story is then told in Goddess Rising. The overarch of the entire trilogy is that the goddess Isis from ancient Egypt is out to get the devil for having sabotaged Exodus. So if you look up Exodus, there was a lot going on there where the priests kept saying, "Oh, no, don't worry about Moses' magic. It's all just stuff we already know." Well, that turns out to have been the devil. And Isis has woken up to this and 3,000 years later is out for revenge. So I hope you enjoyed the reading. Check out the books. And again, thank you very much to the Flint Horror Collective for having me today. I hope you enjoy the rest of the show. Goodbye.